But if you see them from a perspective where they're not just this person with chaotic emotions and uncontainable impulses, but there's a whole person. Often people that carry that diagnosis are very intelligent, very creative, and actually, when they're not in the midst of a crisis, very compassionate and empathic people, very sensitive people. If we can really try to pull out some of those strengths, it kind of can eat part of the monster. So I mean, I get very upset when I hear that people say it's not treatable, because I've treated people with it. It takes a long time and it's challenging, but I sometimes think it's the way that we're taught in school to like be afraid of it. Well, if we're afraid of it, then you're never going to get into a full relationship with the person. Of course, they're going to seem like they're not treatable.
Well, there seems to be an added layer with it, because there are a lot of diagnoses or labels in the DSM, the diagnostic manual, that are basically seen from the medical model, which is that they're insidious, progressive, and potentially fatal diseases. And it's not just that, because they say that about PTSD, major depression, a lot of schizophrenia, a lot of different ones. But it seems like with the borderline label, that one gets an extra kind of layer of watch out. I mean, even in school, I think I wasn't the only one that was taught they're highly litigious. They're high risk. They're extremely suicidal. You can't help them. I mean, I had one supervisor tell me in a supervision, that they're the Grand Canyon and you have a trowel. I mean, these kind of images and metaphors and ways of going about them is not just diseased persons, psychiatrically diseased persons, but also as being something to avoid, really adds, I mean, it's difficult enough to work from a growth-oriented, non-medicalized perspective, but to have this extra layer of stigma on there is something that is very damaging on top of people that we know. That's the great thing. I mean, the ACE studies came out right before, a little bit before we were putting the book together. Now we know that trauma causes things that become later labeled as psychiatric syndromes or diseases, as well as another of real diseases like physical ailments. And so now we can say what causes these things. And the good news with that I often tell people is that trauma is treatable. Trauma is something we know a lot about. We've got a lot of current data on it and a lot of experience working with it. So that is something that is workable versus something that's just hopeless from the outset, or considered hopeless from the outset.
Right. So that is a way into treatment, I guess. If we can envisage this as a trauma experience, an unresolved traumatic experience, or maybe multiple experiences, that can give us something to hold on to as a clinician or a practitioner, and